Hello everyone, in this video I will be addressing the topic of bias in the early childhood education program. As a pre-K teacher, I believe it's important to talk about race and racial bias in early childhood because at a very young age, children are already noticing these differences amongst their peers, such as their skin color, their hair, the way they dress, or how they speak. And ideally, if children learn these differences and understand that each person is unique, then they will grow up accepting and respecting others regardless of whether they look like them or not. I do believe teachers have the responsibility to create an anti-bias classroom where every child's identity, their culture, and their language is respected, valued, and also represented, not only in the school but also in the classroom. If a teacher thinks that the best solution is not to address any topics regarding race or bias, then they might unintentionally be creating a space open for exclusion, racism, or even discrimination. A quote that stood out to me from the article or Children or Workforce by Matthews and Jordan was that we are socialized to be quiet on the topic so we do not make people uncomfortable, meaning that we never learn the skills needed to talk about race in a useful and also respectful way. Moving into the topic of culturally responsive pedagogy, according to our textbooks, Families as Partners in Education, Riojas Cortes and Berger describes it as a practice that helps students accept and affirm their cultural identity while developing critical perspectives that challenge inequalities the schools perpetuate. In my class, I practice culturally responsive pedagogy by honoring children's home languages, their family stories, and also their cultural identities. Not only on special occasions, but every day. It's a practice that is part of our daily routine. Most of my students speak English and Spanish, therefore, we do communicate in both languages. Also, I try to choose bilingual materials or materials that reflect their diversity of each of my students. Now, into the topic of implicit bias. I do believe that implicit bias affects and influences the work we do with children and families, even without realizing it. An example of that is that at the beginning of the school year, I always conduct home visits where I get to meet the students and their families in their home environment, and unintentionally, um, I begin to predict how the child and their family might be, which it just happens automatically. But I do try to stay open minded and not let that one interaction define who they are, just by the first impression. And one of the quotes from the video, What is Implicit Bias by the University of Dayton, that stood out to me was that we all have implicit biases. That's just the way our brain works. But it's important to notice that um, the bias that we create, and try to minimize the impact that it might have on our beliefs or actions. Thank you.